It's been 25 years since you made this film. What's different for you, and what is your feeling when you look back at this picture?
It's my personal favorite among my pictures, and then I say that, people say, really? You like it more than the last picture show or whatever? Well, yeah, because if you said to me, what film of yours that you've made so far is most like you, I would say They All Laughed. I don't know why. It's got my sense of humor. It's very romantic. It's urban. It's New York, my hometown. I was crazy about all the women in the picture. I was in love with Dorothy. I was crazy about Colleen and quite fond of Patty. And I loved Audrey Hepburn, of course. There's nobody greater at a romantic comedy than Audrey Hepburn. It happened that Ben Gazzara fell in love with her, she with Ben. And although it didn't end up happily, I wrote it for Audrey. I always wanted to make a movie where there would be no dialogue for a long time and a lot of things would be happening, all of them interesting but somewhat mystifying. But the whole opening from the very beginning till you're in the car with Ben and Patty, at the beginning, the cab, there's no dialogue. And I saw that in a movie I love called Rio Bravo, which begins in the first 5 minutes, sets up the plot of the entire movie, and there's not one line of dialogue. I thought that was really cool. And I always wanted to do something like that.
It's named after a song, isn't it?
They All Laughed, yes. It's from a song by Ira and George Gershwin. I always thought it was a sort of sad title. I had the title before I had the movie. I was going to make a movie in the 70s with Dudley Moore and Sybil called They All Laughed, which was a totally different plot about a jewel thief and a pianist. And never made it, but loved the title. I just always thought there's something sad about the title, because it's in the past tense.
And They All Laughed is just written by you, right?
It was written by me, but I was basing it on the people I was writing it for, so sometimes Blaine would say something and I'd take it and put it in the script. You know, like the whole pre-bop, post-bop. That's all Blaine's kind of patois.
She's in pre-bop with the boyfriend. She's in post-bop with the husband. If she goes into post-bop with the boyfriend, she'll be in ex-bop with the husband. If she's in ex-bop with the husband, the case is over, we get paid, and, well, then it's every man for himself.
Yeah, but it's the post-bop with the boyfriend that worries me.
Yeah, well, it's a post-bop with the boyfriend that worries everybody.
Blaine had come in to help us in the distribution of St. Jack.
He's the guy with the roller skates, the long hair, the beard,
right?
the
That's
thing.
how he looked.
Yeah.
And that's how he talked.
Right.
So I thought he was quite a character. So we wrote a part for him, and he also worked as a producer on the picture.
And George Morfogen.
George Morfogen who plays Leon, the head of the agency.
Right.
Is probably my oldest friend in the world. I met him in Shakespeare in the Park when we were. He was understudying Iago on Othello, and I was carrying a spear.
You must have guessed about.
Since the beginning.
When?
3 years ago. When?
You've known about this for 3 years and never told me?
Yeah, that's right.
My God.
Everybody's known.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, who does?
One of the reasons that movies were better written in the Golden Age is because the actors, not only the leading actors, but the supporting actors, were all under contract. So they say, how come Casablanca's so good? Well, you're writing it for Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, Claude Rains, Conrad Veidt. I mean, these are good actors. They have personalities. You're writing for a certain personality. Yeah. It's a lot easier, as you know, to write scenes if you know who's playing it.
Well, I always like to have the actors in mind, and then you end up not getting them.
Or you do.
Or you get them, and you get them, and they're great. Or you've written for one person, you don't get that person, somebody else plays it, and then that works too.
And then you usually rewrite it a little bit.
You rewrite it a little bit, or just the fact that you have somebody strong in your mind it helps, can help you to kind of articulate their way of
It's hugely important, and in this picture, here I was with everybody. I knew who everybody was, and as we were shooting it, it became, relatively easy to write scenes. I mean, some of the best scenes were written while we were shooting.
You seen Arthur?
If I see him, I'm gonna cut his thing off.
Okay, I'll tell him.
I cut the picture in my head, and we shot it. We cut it in the camera more than any picture I've ever done, except maybe St. Jack. Those two pictures were really there's nothing that you see, there's nothing left out. and and it was shot exactly the way it's cut.
There's one place where you can kind of feel, I sort of sense like it feels like it's shot in sequence, and you design this shot, and you design this shot, and you design this shot to go after.
Well, it had to be, you see.
It's when they arrive at the courthouse, and the camera's way up high on the steps, and the first car comes out, and they go in, and then he comes racing up around the thing, and then he comes running all the way up the steps, and we stay with him all the way through, and finally we pan over, and we see the door to the courthouse.
Yeah.
And then he runs in, and it sort of swings up, and he runs there, and then it goes to a shot of him looking around, and then it has this point of view shot. And the way it's shot is I really love the way it was shot. It's very kind of natural and fluid, and it has a lot of energy. You can feel like the director kind of knowing exactly how this is going to go together, and it has a real kind of precision in the way it's done.
Thank you. That's what I like. I mean, I like movies where I feel the director, the storyteller, is taking me somewhere, and I have faith in that he has got a strong grip on me, and he's taking me somewhere. That's a good sequence to mention because it's all visual.
Yeah, it's all visual.
And you see Colleen up above, and she goes, mm-hmm. It's the only dialogue in the whole scene.
Right.
And it's actually where the whole thing turns. It's where the men lose control and the women take over.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hitchcock used to say, if you go to a famous place, show the people some of the famous places in the famous place, like New York.
Right, but that movie's filled with. But that movie has. It's a lot of places that are familiar to New Yorkers.
Right.
But they're not like the places that you see in the postcards or anything.
No, that's true.
And it just has the feeling of the city in a moment where I wasn't here, but I get the real sense of it.
Well, I was madly in love at that time, and the city, I was madly in love with New York, and I'd sort of been out of love with New York because I'd moved away and sort of been unhappy with New York for some years, and now I sort of was crazy about it. And I think it has that affection is clear, is palpable. It was a beautiful spring and summer when we were shooting. It was gorgeous days. We were all gorgeous. And it was, it's there it is. It's, you know, people say, well, it's kind of a fantasy, New York, but it was all real. What we shot was real people. A lot of those people on the streets were real.
Yeah, it is. You do get that. You get the feeling of the time and the place, and it does have this documentary feeling, and it is a complete fantasy.
Yeah.
How weird.
Is it? Why?
The most difficult sequence that I think that I've ever shot, and when I look back and I can't believe we did it the way we did, because it's so like, are you kidding? But it's the scene at the end, toward the end, in when Colleen is singing and she kind of brings that whole story together, and Dorothy and comes down, John Ritter. It's at Green Street.
Yeah.
Well, she had to sing 2 songs in the scene, and during the singing of those 2 songs, at certain places, she had to do certain gestures that had to be exactly at that right moment in terms of the song. But we didn't know how long each shot was going to last. So it was very difficult to say, okay, at this point in the song, she goes like that.
Right, so you have to plan that.
So we had to plan that, and we didn't have a storyboard. And all I did was, I had the lyrics to the 2 songs, and I sort of figured out approximately how long we would be in each shot. So I said, okay, that's about 1.5 lines, so it'll have to happen here. And you know what? It worked. But it was like shooting a musical number in your head.
Yeah, well, you know.
But I enjoyed it enormously. It was a lot of fun.
That actually can be fun. I sometimes when you've got something that's going to be cut to music, or if you've got the music really planned out. I've done a thing where I knew I wanted to have the music, something hitting the song here and something hitting the song here, and I've got this in between, and I've got the editing room telling me we have 13 seconds to get from this to this. So he's got to go down the steps of 13 seconds to just time it out exactly.
Yes.
But then it works.
Sure, it works. It's great. It's great to have to do something to a certain beat.
Yeah. This was your 2nd film in a row starring Ben Gazzara. When did you first meet him, and what was it that drew you so much to him as an actor?